All right, it is indeed a very, very good morning to you. It is a very, very good morning to you. I hope you're keeping well wherever you're tuning in from this morning. It's a pleasure to have you. Always a pleasure to have you. It's another, it's a State of the Nation edition of the 4th of April 2023. It's a new month, 4th of April 2023. And it begins now, State of the Nation edition, the 4th of April 2023. And it begins right now. Come on, Kaida. Please, like when you like, we get to know that you're watching us. And please share. When you share, you give someone else an opportunity to watch the broadcast. It's a pleasure to have you again this morning. Always a pleasure to have you. It's a very bipartisan morning. There is a mix of cold and warmth. It feels very bipartisan. It's good to see you this morning. Let us know where you're tuning in from this morning. Let us know where you're tuning in from this morning. Tafadhali. Tunatazama kutoka wapi asubuhi ya leo. Tuko na Arnold Maliba. You're waiting for, I don't know what's going on. It's 10 minutes to 8 a.m. But we are yet to see Lucia, Ayiela and David Oyola. I don't know where they are. Sijui wamefika wapi. Lakini tuko na Arnold Maliba hapa atatuambia bipartisan kama pia mazungumzo imeanza wakati kuna conflict. Tunazungumzia mambo ya bipartisan. Have you done a bipartisan approach at all before you left?
Well, not any that I remember recently. Yeah. Have you tried that?
Now that people are trying it, maybe I should.
You can then give us the results.
Okay.
Hoping that it doesn't mean the old things. You know, nowadays we live in a world where very simple things can actually be defined in very funny words. Look like it's a new phenomenon when it's just something that we know, and probably it's been there before. Yeah.
Right. Good morning to you. How are you doing? Well?
Morning. You well?
Okay.
And Happy New Year. I think we've not met this year, have we?
We have not met this year. I don't understand why, though.
Okay. At least the bipartisan process has ensured that you call me back.
At least.
Yeah.
Right. Now we're going to kick off the show this morning, and we're going to have a conversation, of course, around the recent issues that have been happening in the country. Azimio leadership has called off the demos this week, and they're saying they're giving a chance to dialogue. Bipartisan approach in Parliament. We saw yesterday the President had met his parliamentary members, or his MPs, allied to Kenya Kwanza government. And also Raila Odinga seems to be having a meeting as well with his team just to decide who forms the committee that is going to look into the IBC formulations and constitution. Do you call it a bipartisan process into the issues that are affecting, that are being raised, the protests that are being raised by Azimio? Lakini kama kawaida, before that, tena mbele za Mungu tuombe tukirudi basi na kuja kujua nani ameweza kuamka. Mighty Father, we come before this morning. We worship you, glorify your name. Thank you for another opportunity. We are alive this morning. We thank you for this broadcast as we start off, be with us, and as we have this conversation, may it edify the fabric of this country. For every tackler who's joining us this morning as well, may we meet them at their point of individual needs. For we pray, trusting and believing. Amen. Arnold, what is the state of the nation?
I think we've gone back. Over time, the history of our nation has been tumultuous. It's not always been straight. We've made 10 steps forward sometimes and then did 20 back. But we've always remained on a continuous march forward. Even though it's never been, like I said earlier on, it's never been a straight and linear movement. But the one thing that has been general is that we've made a march forward until this particular point. We had a very difficult moment in the last 2 weeks or so. In what I called, for me, I still hold that demonstrations are the salt of democracy. The noises that come with democracy, actually, that is what gives democracy its taste, because Winston Churchill said that democracy is the worst form of governance, except for all the others. As in, it is the worst, yes, but then there is none other better than it up to now. We have come up with all manner of ways to try and define it, but nothing really still beats this. It works, it's been tested, it has got its own challenges, but that's where we are. So the last 2 weeks we've had demos, we've had people lose their lives, at least 3 of them. We've had the property go up in smoke. We've seen the nation go up to the precipice. We've been on the tethers, but then we finally remembered that we are Kenyans, and then the spirit that has always ensured that we move forward prevailed. And here we are. Now we are talking about a term called bipartisan. Other people argue bipartisan is just the same thing as a handshake. It's still the same thing as a merger. It's still the same thing as a grand coalition. But it's time. Let's see how they constitute teams this week. I saw the president meeting his team to come up with a strategy for the bipartisan process. At least the president stepped back on one issue. One that for me, I think I always insisted was the main issue in all these posturing and political furore. The others also are quickly forming up. So it's something we are going to watch. Probably for the time being, it's for people to look back and see how did we get here and how did we even eventually remember and get our footing back to where we are. But over and above, I hope that we have got lessons. The last 2 weeks, I think, has got a lot of lessons, both for government, for the people. Unfortunately, the people of Kenya never learn, for politicians. And generally, all of us have got a lesson or two to learn out of this. So I'm hoping that each and every one of us has actually taken their time and they're not lost to their emotions. There is a lot of feeling of loss with some sectors, especially those who had taken very hardline positions on either side. Then there is people who felt like the brinkmanship should actually have been brought to the tipping point, especially those who believed into it as an end, not as a means to anything. So there's that particular end, but probably we can actually use this day to actually just look at the lessons learned, what emerging leaders, younger leaders, and people in power can actually learn from this and know exactly how to go about it. It's a whole basket of lessons for us. For me, very little hope that we really have learned the lessons of old. I'm hoping that probably we can still use this as a set piece for us to learn exactly how to do things differently if we wish. I don't know. I've seen David is here. Finally, he's made it. I think he was having a bipartisan meeting somewhere else.
Clearly. But I think he needs to have a bipartisan discussion with timekeeping. He has never had a very good relationship with timekeeping. There seems to be a constant conflict between him and time.
Or rather, time beats him.
Since I knew him, I've never seen a day he's ever shown up anywhere on time. In fact, our first meeting in 2018.
Yeah,
I remember. In 2018, we were actually trying to couple up another movement again. We've been trying to couple up movements for a very long time. And Oyola showed up 2 hours later.
No.
And as usual with a backpack. I don't know what usually carries.
Not today because Gerald has kept time.
No.
we will not
There's no single day that
the rain is that's different, you know.
So you need to have a bipartisan time
with traffic.
On the watch. No.
The rain is.
Oyola, Arnold does not live in the studio.
No, he's on this other side. This guy wanted to be a member of parliament just opposite, across the road. So he's a resident.
Have you forgotten that he has also run at some point in Chugumau? So he belongs anywhere.
I run for office where I live. I am the only believer. I am the only person who believes in
when you move with the office.
Being a resident leader, not a remote controlled leader who lives in different places and then you lead people on the other side. I think in Nairobi we really are a funny lot where, I was born and grew up in Mathare. And there is none of our leaders who lived with us in Mathare as long as I knew. When a few people, for example, were elected as councillors then, and then later on we talk about MCAs, even if a local guy won for an MC or a senator, they always left us. So what is the essence of representation?
You can't live in Mathare. There's no place where a leader can live in Mathare.
But you are leading those people.
No, you can't live in shanties.
When you say that you can't live in Mathare, the people who live in Mathare, how exactly
are they? Human.
Because
are they animals?
Because they are not leaders. You are
They're
a
not
leader.
leaders.
Yeah.
Thank God you don't live in Mathare. Otherwise, we would have taught you the fear of God.
I've been
today.
to Mathare. Really, Gerald, you can't live in those shanties. Where next door wanatengeneza changabu, it's impossible. It's actually an insecurity issue. For you can't. You can't.
So you love to represent those people. You love their votes.
Yes.
Saying, but
you cannot live with them. You cannot
represent
associate
from a
with them.
distance, from a safe distance.
No, from a safe distance.
You want to touch them with a long pole.
There is no agreement we have with them that I have to live with you.
I think in future we actually need to change laws so that if you're going to run for office, you should be a resident, not just a voter in that particular area.
Then you'll be going for by-elections every time because those leaders will be killed with those guys.
Even governors, when you look at counties.
Those guys, you see, slums are some of the safest places in this country.
Who told you?
As in, I was born in one, so you know.
But they were raping women the other day.
Yeah.
As in, that happens. It happens in Airbnbs in Kilimani here. It happens in Karen. It's happening everywhere.
The difference is that was happening on the streets. These were Airbnbs. Means
I'm just saying it's happening in affluent marketplaces. So you really cannot say that people who live in slums cannot be leaders of themselves. They are leaders. Some of the best human beings actually come from those particular areas.
You know, that is very possible, but only if we change our culture. If we still have a culture where a member of parliament or any aspirant wakes up at 4 a.m. and already you're finding 100 people waiting for you you cannot live under
the same thing.
That's why MCAs of Kakamega, where you come from, they're all living in Kisumu.
No, they don't. My MCA in my village, for example, where my parents live, is my own cousin, and every time I go home, he's there.
Then I think he's above 60.
No, he's actually younger than me, way younger. He's not even turned 30.
Then he will retire from that politics very poor. We can bet on that.
One thing you actually have to give it to Oyola is that
I'm very sincere.
No, he hates people.
No, I'm very sincere. Gerald,
especially poor people.
No, Maliba, of course, nobody loves poverty. But Maliba will be very honest with you. You wake up in the rural area at 4, 5. Already you're finding 20, 30, 40 people waiting for you. Wengine nyumba yao ilichomeka jana, wengine wako na bili ya matanga, wengine wako na bili za hospitali, school fee, whatever. Your salary is 145,000. MCAs. And you have to cough close to 20,000 that one morning only. If you really want to make money if you're a young person, then you have to look for a safe distance where you can also grow as a person and also represent your people. Go interact with them at the funerals, meet them in Kamukunchi, hear their problems, but don't live among those people. You will retire poor, I'm telling you.
And anyway, on that particular end, Oyola makes a point, and to the extent that voters hate poor people.
Even leaders, but he's a leader. So.
No. Voters, unfortunately for voters, the first qualification for a leader is one with money. Lazima uwe na kakitu.
Yes.
Yeah. Na hii ako kakitu nikao for the taking. So anyway.
And that's why I tell young people that wachane na maneno ya MCA. Wachia wazee wenye wameshatengeneza mashamba fulani, they can sell, sustain their lives, enye mebaki dunia hii. If you're young like Maliba here, you go for an MC in the rural. Maybe town mahali unawezeka container, you take 6,000 per shop. At least you sustain your operations. But rural mahali ni msitu tu na wanyama na watu na problems. You'll retire poor. Poor. Better MP, you are in Nairobi all the time. But there. Gerald, I'm telling you, you will retire poor.
Unfortunately, the seat that is now very available for young people is the MCA seat. Because now running for member of parliament is a matter of life and death. It's one of the hardest seats to win. In this country, it's even now easier to win a governor's seat than win a member of parliament. So difficult.
In fact, Senate is now easier.
A senator looks like guys just decide, we are 3 of us here. You look like you can be a senator, so you go. But now the only seat that is available for young people is the MCA. Actually, a very transformative seat, but then our political culture is very difficult.
Actually, that's where power is, if you ask me.
No, unfortunately, when you talk about power is resources. How much do MCAs have? Plus, even if you talk about devolution, out of a 3 trillion plus budget, they are getting slightly below 400 billion. So how much is that? You want to call it 15%, but realistically it's about 9%.
It's too little.
Good to see you, Lucia.
Good to be here.
This is another person who needs to have a bipartisan conversation with time.
What do you mean by bipartisan?
Is it alarm? You need to have a bipartisan conversation with time,
with my
or
time
your watch or your alarm. I think there's a disconnection somewhere.
Maybe ni Masai inamuonea. She tries to keep time, but time
does not keep her. Me.
But it's good. It's interesting that she changes every day. Women are very interesting people. Last week she had some baby dreads. Now she's back again to...
you
just when people are making decisions based on that.
The one thing that actually surprises me is that you even know the names of those things. I don't know what baby dreads are.
or adult dreads.
The only thing I know at least about something to do with baby is that she's putting on baby pink. That I know.
At least you can tell colors. Many men cannot tell out colors.
I know this because there's a school in Western, a boys' school that dresses their men in a baby pink shirts. And I have forgiven that school for doing that to those men.
But what is the problem with a man putting on a baby pink shirt?
No, it's
especially the way things are looking now.
There's actually a school. It's called Butler Boys. They put on baby pink shirts. How do you dress boys into baby pink shirts?
Butler Boys was just chilling.
Boys to men.
That kind of violence you pull on men by dressing them into baby pink.
They don't even have the steam, the steam when
boys,
you mix
really?
with girls in girls' schools, you look like a joke.
And they have not really cared to even change. That kind of violence meted on boys should actually be called out.
At this point, the black and white conversation is clearly never ending. Tumeongeza baby pink kwa hii conversation. Anyway, Gerald, I'm glad to know you noticed my hairstyle changes. Aww.
Thank God for me. Thank God for me. Who else would that? You need to thank the Lord for me. At least you need to spare at least 4.5 hours every single day to thank the Lord for me.
While you do that, you should also spare like an hour to fear.
To fear men.
Yeah. No, to fear Gerald.
Are you campaigning directly?
They said your agenda is that gender that will make you wake up at 2 a.m. at night just to say we alafu urudi. No.
But women are worse.
Really suffering.
Women are worse. Anyway.
Suffering which one? Hiyo mtaongelelea Sunday kwa men's edition.
For now tuongelee siasa. Haya, Ipkacheria, good morning to you. Just as tomorrow, good morning Gerald, live from London, Nakuru. Asante sana tu London, Nakuru. Hata Nakuru ni ngambo. Court King, good morning Bitok. Raila would have landed at ICC today. The old man is a genius. CK Kanisa and Lord tuned in. Good morning to you. Kabon Sara, good morning to Takol CEO Mr. Gerald Bitok. My number one TV station, Mungu ni nane, dialogue ilibidi. Asante sana Sara. Mambo ni mengi Kenya. Kipkwacheria, Republic of Narok County, good to see you. God King, this Maliba is so influential, outstanding. Asante God King. Lapani Jerab, good morning, Tackle team, good morning to you. Say hi to Maliba and team, good morning. God King, Amen, Asante KP Party, good morning. Pauline, amen, good to see you. Arnold Maliba, naambiwa hapa, good morning to you. Blessed Tuesday, happy new year Arnold. Kumbe hujaona watu kwa muda mrefu.
Na usemi jina yake ndio nisimtaje wewe pia acha wivu.
Joan Gerald. Yeah, diaspora. Your ambitions are thwarted.
No,
that must have been a lady.
Unless you use a parliamentary approach.
So, Joan nimesalimika. This guy alikuwa anaficha jina yako. This is the kind of impunity that must be defeated in this country.
Unless you use a parliamentary approach.
Gerald, are you feeling threatened this morning?
No, but I think I started well. So I don't think I'm being threatened. At least I have something in the hand.
Shall we call for dialogue between the two of you?
Arnold is not a threat. Arnold is not a threat. He's never been.
Ama tupeleke hiki tu parliament.
Ndio inaenda sasa. Labda tupeleke sasa county assembly. Sababu sasa this is a very serious matter. We need the Kanjoras. This might involve throwing of seats and all that. Isaac Chumba, hi, good morning. All Chumba from Ravin. Edwin Machuki tuned in from Dubai. Pass my greetings to that gentleman Arnold. Kwa nini utaki kusalimia Edwin? The way you are enthusiastically greeting.
As in, he didn't even finish the statement he already was condemning.
The other one I had not even finished.
Edwin hapa hivi nimesalimika, wachana na hapa Gerald hapa kuna fitina mingi sana. Fitina zilileta demonstration kwa street.
Now Mambo, a day like this last week. And I'm sure by yesterday morning there are people, of course, by Sunday afternoon, there are people who were still outlining and saying, kesho ni maandamano. Kwanza watu walikuwa wanapiga sheria, wanajua kesho ni holiday, Monday ni holiday. Then some more people show up bwana. Oyola naye alikuwa amepanga vile Monday anaenda kulima William.
Watu ni mimi, I am watu.
You are watu.
I am watu. You know, I went out yesterday and I passed through Buruburu. Na kulikuwa kunakaa Sunday. You know, I'm even my brain bado haija come back to the fact that ni Monday.
Bado hujashikanisha.
Bado sija hata leo ni Tuesday. Unaona
sasa.
But things change very fast in our politics. Mambo ni mengi na masaa ni machache.
Clearly.
But we thank God that maandamano imeisha, because it was now becoming something else.
But I think I want us to start off with lessons. You know, I think there are very serious lessons that Kenyans can learn from this development that we are having now. And even before we go deep into that conversation, I want us to, what have you learned? Wewe kama Lucia, ni nini umejifunza? Kuanzia Jumapili njema ya Bwana.
First and foremost, ule jamaa alikuwa very right. Siasa weka kwa lungs. Ikishabaza unafanya inatoka inaenda. So hiyo ndio kitu nilifanya. I am actually surprised, Gerald, that people are surprised that this happened. You mean and I'm also surprised that people are surprised that they're now learning that we are on our own. For the past 10 years, you guys have not been knowing we've been on our own. You know, tuko peke yetu. I'm even more surprised that it's not the cost of living that was spoken of first. Ilikuwa maneno ya elections. Not to say we don't need electoral justice. We do. But mimi sahi ukiniuliza constituting IEBC na kuweka chakula kwa sahani yangu, Gerald, I want food on my plate, honestly. Stakula IEBC. So I kind of feel like I have learned that nothing has actually changed. The more things change, the more they stay the same. I have also learned that politicians will always be politicians, and just because they're politicians, it doesn't necessarily make them leaders. Also, I have learned that we have over 4,000 legislators, Gerald, and I'm not feeling represented at all.
You're not feeling represented.
And like you said, we will be there na wao kwa maandamano, but they will not invite us to negotiate. So, am I really represented? I'm not represented.
David Oyola, what are some of the lessons you've learned?
I learned my lesson in 2018. I'm a person who learned very fast, and I learn once and I don't wait to learn twice. When we saw the Junet and the Baba and Winnie coming from the
stairs of Arambe House,
stairs of Arambe House, it caught us with a lot of shock. By the way, in fact, most people don't know that I wanted to tell even Maliba that at that time when Baba was poised to go and take an oath, I can't call it illegal because there is no jurisprudence that has declared it so. So when he was supposed to go have that mock swearing in, we are among the people who went to court to kind of, something people are saying that, I was got into some things that I don't even know how it was. Anyway, serikali inafanya kazi mambo yake tofauti. But I learned my lesson in 2018 that politics and politicians are always what they are. And they pursue their personal selfish interest first. Then the interest of their relatives and children and wives and sisters. Then they go to their friends and acquaintances. After that one, they have business associates. That is how the hierarchy of political interest.
Girlfriends.
When I hear my sister talking about plates and a hanger and ugali and sukuma wiki, those are not conversations politicians talk about. You should not be shocked. I mean, that is how it is. All the way from since God created. Remember, in heaven, and I know Maliba and my sister are Christians. I'm not sure about whether she's a Christian.
You are very specific with your doubts.
Mbona unanishuku ndugu yangu?
Though Maliba was a serious Christian before, though the world has pulled him on their side.
The world is very heavy.
It has pulled Maliba on its side.
The owner of the world is God, so I am only within God's work.
Gerald, there was politics started in heaven when the devil was, Satan was called Lucifer. He was trying to also compete to find out how much power he sways around. And when he was given the power to be the choir master, and that was the most, it was an elite unit, a serious unit. in heaven, apart from the military of God, where God was the commander, there was the one, the band, and he thought that maybe through this power, and we sing so nicely, we are told that Lucifer had almost 40-something different voices that he could train people to sing. So he swayed a lot of power in the kingdom of God. And there was a time he tried to challenge the authority of the Son of God. And he felt like he should be the one playing his role. What did God do? God did not call for a referendum or an election to find out exactly whether Lucifer is powerful or not. He kicked him out immediately. And akaletea sisi yeye hapa hivi we deal with him. And he went with a third of the angels by his side. That's around 30%. The same votes that William Ruto got in this election. So when politicians sit down to begin talking about these particular matters, there is one overriding thing that they will always take on. The politicians will always talk about power balance, power interests, economic interests. They don't talk about cultural interests. Maybe a few of them. Maybe Moses Kuria was the one who was talking about circumcision. Those are cultural interests. But ordinarily, a politician will not talk about cultural, though they are supposed to talk about it. Because in political science, we are taught that the definition of politics is the authoritative allocation of resources and values. That, in fact, elections is not politics. Politics always begin at when somebody takes an oath, because politics is about resources. Who decides which resources goes to Maliba's pocket? When does it get it? And how does it get it? Now that is politics. The other ones we have is campaigns and propaganda and machinations. Those are not politics. They're just noises. If there's a time citizens need to be very careful, is this particular time, because this is now where real politics is now playing. Mshamba gani inaenda kwa kina Maliba, barabara, maji, and those kind of things.
Aswa kwa kina Maliba.
And I've learned to accept my fate as a voter, that there's very little that we can do, Gerald. We can do very little. We can only campaign, vote, and go home. But after that one, when politicians begin assuming offices, whatever they do in the background, it's none of our business. It should be our business, but they don't allow us to get there. And therefore, I learned my lesson in 2018, when Baba had an handshake that did not benefit majority of his supporters. It did not really benefit us. Baba is a good politician, but he's not a good negotiator. He negotiates things. Even the accord for 2007, 2008, we got a raw deal. If you look at the ministries that the people, where he comes from, his people got, we got departments, ministries. Somebody sijui registry, hii kitu imepewa wakina nani, we got departments. But look at what Kibaki took. Kibaki took real power, finance, security. And I've learned to accept our fate that there's a limit that we can reach at. And Mimi, there's one thing that I said from 2018, and it was confirmed now, I will never die for a politician. In fact, I even swore never to vote unless I'm the one vying. Yeah.
But you still voted.
But I will kind of vote, but I cannot really promise myself, unless Maliba finances me a bit to take up some seat.
Your lessons, what have you learned and what can Kenyans actually?
I listen to David here, and I'm sure Mwalimu Nyingoro, wherever he is very angry with his student here.
Who's Mwalimu Nyingoro?
I decided to call him Mwalimu because then I don't see the professor weight in what his student is doing here today. So I'm picking lessons. A little bit of them are new, but most of them are old. For the people, I think the people must learn to be selfish. If Kenyans do not become selfish, they will not win anything. All of us are campaigning, even for resources, not just the politicians. So people need to side with where their interests are actually taken care of.
Okay.
And in doing that, they actually need to pick between two damnations, because sometimes you are damned if you support the other side, you are damned if you're supporting the other end.
You're still damned if you don't.
So choose, and even if you don't pick a side, you are still damned. So pick the damnation that actually is better. As in, pick the bad, or rather the good bad. We are in between bads, so you choose whatever you end. So And then people should not be afraid to be fluid and pick positions. Some people out there are pretending to be ideologues. Ideologues, you cannot even mobilize people to vote for you as a chairperson of a cattle dip at home. And you're there on social media speaking ideologically and appearing like you stand for. What do you stand for? You are standing for a man who does not even consult you. The one thing that you actually realize is that before we started, Azimio started the demonstrations, they did what they called public participation. They went around the country, specifically in Raila's strongholds, to ask people for a buy-in. But then when they were calling them off, there was no time to actually tell people, okay, now we've come back. This is what we are considering. It wasn't necessary. So you then realize that public participation, as has been sold to us, is a lot of a farce. It's just a matter of you showing up. It's so tokenistic. We need to deepen public participation. The other lesson I learned is that Baba has revived his 2027 journey, because I can tell you 100%. Did you see any demonstrations in Kitui?
No, I didn't.
Did you see any demonstrations in Kirinyaga?
No, I did not.
Did you see any demonstrations
In Kishugu, Wakina Martha?
In Wajakoya's village?
No. Where does he come from? I thought he comes from London.
He comes from Matungu in Mumias, in Kakamega County. Did you see any demonstrations in his village? So when 2027 comes up and Kalonzo says that it is my time to rule, they will ask him, when people were demonstrating in Siaya, what were your people in Machakos, Wote, and Kitui doing? When people were demonstrating in Kisumu, where are your people? I can tell you that out of this particular 2-week exercise, Raila has already sealed Kalonzo's fate as a running mate in 2027 again, because Kalonzo did not show up when it was necessary. At this particular point, this might actually look like it's far-fetched, but I can tell you with that, Raila has killed so many birds with one stone. He has managed to get the government to talk to him. He has managed to relegate Kalonzo to his natural habitat as his official running mate always. So, people will ask, and I can tell you, even Oyola will ask you in 2027, why is Kalonzo making noise? And when people were making noise, he wasn't even colorful. Where was he? Apparently, only Baba's car was shot at. Why wasn't Kalonzo's car shot at during the demonstrations? So I can tell you that is one lesson you can be sure, that Baba knows how to recreate himself. Automatically, Kalonzo is now Baba's running mate in 2027. There is no way Kalonzo will actually escape that, because he did not. Even Winnie did a lot of shining more than Kalonzo in this particular thing. She really tried a lot of stuff, claiming her phones had been hacked. She had been treated badly at Intercon. The following day, she posted next to her car saying her car had been targeted. All through somehow, Kalonzo was not targeted. There is nothing for Kalonzo to show out of this.
In fact, he has said he was not aware of what was in that speech.
No, I doubt that is true. That could just be some Photoshop work, guys working around that. But I can tell you that for me, that is one lesson. And we can wait for this. It will be a delayed boom. People will hear then at that particular end. But then some quick lessons that I find that are new. Our police force that was working for Uhuru Kenyatta, especially formation commanders, are seriously Azimio.
Okay.
If there is anything the president really needs to restructure, is the National Police Force, or rather the National Police Service. These force commanders here send officers who never come to work, ile sumbua ya ofisi. The officers that are unfit. When is the last time you saw officers running? The only time officers have run was on Nyerere Road. One day when comrades were very angry, they chased a few police officers who had gone ahead of the others. Okay. But these formation commanders really frustrated the demonstrations. Government's management of demonstrations was frustrated by the police service because a number of these officers are still very loyal to the Azimio cause and they have never left the campaign mode. That they cannot deny. Walikuwa wanamwaga maji juu ya demonstrators instead ya kutarget demonstrators. They would rather cause problems for the leaders so that the government looks bad. The National Police Service frustrated this demonstration. They frustrated William Ruto. They looked like they were clueless. So that is one thing that
So the police, you're saying the police service is rigged against William Ruto, against the government?
They have not, especially for formation commanders, they have not changed their way of doing things.
Okay.
A number of them, not all of them, but I can tell you a number of police officers, the way they were doing things, leaking information to Azimio, playing around with the demonstrators.
So
those are my lessons. I'll be through, you will come through.
So I have a question on that lesson. Just out of curiosity. You mean to tell me our commander-in-chief does not have command of the police service?
My sister, this thing called government, govern a man, this thing called statecraft is not linear. You can't even draw it geographically. It's a difficult concept. So let me just finish this. So my lesson number one is that William really needs to restructure the police service to look like what he needs, to serve his interest, because he has already sworn in. He's already the commander-in-chief. But his formation commanders in the police service really let him down. As in, I know where he sits, he knows that. That is a lesson he cannot escape. Number two is the media. The media is so hostile to this administration that the media did not become the mirror of the society. The media joined one side of society to bash government and teach the government of William Ruto a little fear of God. The media space was so hostile to William, as in literally the media that is out there. In this particular time, if we had ended up in a damning situation, I can tell you the media had no way of exonerating themselves. They decided to be the patrol. They decided to incite. They decided to actually make it look like, I know probably William Ruto and his administration have been a little bit reckless in addressing the media. A few media people who are working for William now might have enemies in media houses who are their former colleagues. So the people who are working with William Ruto have made the media their enemies, and the media has made William their enemy, which is so unfair. The media cannot. I accuse the media for actually being so biased that during the last 2 weeks, they had nothing even to help stabilize society. Let us assume they hate this administration. But outside of this administration, we have got a society and a nation to take care of. The media didn't care about the administration and they didn't care about this nation. All they wanted was to escalate. As in media ilikuwa kuchocha. No good thing, even where it's straightforward, even just being the objective mirror where people, Oyola can see his reflection and say, okay, this is how I look like. The media should be, but they decided to be so hostile against this administration. That is why I actually think the president was real when he told them that we will not close you. You remember in his speech, he told them, we cannot close down the media. Kenya is past that. But from what you people have done, if we exchanged and we did the same, you people will close us. As in, that is how...
The roles were reversed.
Yeah. Then the other bit of it is that government's communication is literally dead. From bottom up. Government did not even I wouldn't say that the government is under communicating.
It's not communicating.
There was no communication. All those communication officers, people were doing things on their own. You see, like here, she raises and she says her own thing. Oyola said, we are under attack. Let's say like we are in the studio here. Yeah. We are under attack. So everybody organizes his own strategy the way he feels. But the mainstream people, the government communication infrastructure...
Strategic communication.
Is dead. When I'm talking about that, I'm talking about from that communication person at the ministry level. I'm talking at the guys in State House. We have got even the Ministry of Information. That particular element, William really needs to strengthen it, relook at it, and rework his communication team entirely. You cannot have a government that cannot even communicate effectively. You know, in this particular one, I can tell you one of the lessons that I know out of those three. The police actually frustrating William Ruto. The media being so hostile to this administration and his communication being very ineffective is that government was found wanting. Government was found unprepared, and there was no way government was going to get a comeback because immediately people got jobs, they got relaxed. So they dismantled all the infrastructure they had as a campaign team because they are basic things like data that they could... Unga, for example, is not where it was in August when we came in. This government could not speak eloquently. A government of communicators was found mute and dumb just because their communication infrastructure was dead. That is, I'm hoping that, by the way, government's inability to organize themselves for this. By the way, Azimio was 10, government was 0. That's the truth. As in Azimio fired all shots in this particular engagement. Government did not even cock its gun. And the only way they actually had to save the mess and to save their face was for the president to step down. The president made this stepping down. There were many ways. To re-strategize. And I am hoping that they have gone back and they will not sleep on their laurels again, because there was no way they were going to recover. Because then who else will say what? From the very beginning, no communication, no nothing. This government was found wanting. This should not happen again. I am hoping that William Ruto does not allow his government to sleep on their job. My final lesson is that I think people have forgotten. Have you realized that during the William Ruto and Uhuru Kenyatta government, everybody used to say that William Ruto was the bad one?
Yeah.
Somehow, everybody will tell you, Uhuru Kenyatta is good. Initially, they hated Uhuru Kenyatta when he was the candidate. Immediately, he became president. He now became presidential, and William Ruto was the one who even, quote unquote, ordered the police to shoot people, and he's the one who was giving all those illegal orders. Now, all of a sudden, people are now telling us that William Ruto, who just 6 months ago was the terrible thing to them, especially I'm talking about the other side, he is now a good man, and now Gachagua is the bad one. As in, Oyola, you need to tell guys that there is always that person, Wanga. Wanga, we are the kings from the West, literally the only kingdom that was in present-day Kenya.
You try to be.
No, we still are.
Okay.
So we used to have this thing that this guy, Boni Khalwale, once told you, a guy called Mwinyambi. Mwinyambi was... kuinyamba is to fat. Yes. Ama kunyamba ile kwa Kiswahili. So there was a guy specifically set aside because sometimes the king would be taking care of serious business and he would not be required to. It's difficult for him to go away so that he goes and farts and comes back. So the king will fart and then we will say, Oyola, you are the one who has farted. So walk out. Talk hapa. But that was their business there so that then they can cover the king. So there is always an Omwinyambi in every administration. This particular person who takes blame, he's actually the scapegoat. He's the fall boy or the fall person for every administration. Now you see, especially the Azimio side, guys are cheering everywhere how Gachagua has been put in his corner. My friend, Gachagua played his role so effectively. I have just realized that people, we don't learn, we don't see these things. All of a sudden, this William Ruto that you call all names, now he's a good man, he's understanding, he's very presidential. It's only his deputy president who doesn't understand. And you think that he doesn't know these things? There are things the king cannot say. There are things that should not pointed to the king. Kama ni kunyamba. You think that when the police were teaching people a little fear of God in town, partly or at least day one, they were a little bit serious, that the president didn't know. Remember, Gachagua was not the acting president. There is a law on how you become an acting president. He was still the deputy president. You know, when Uhuru went to ICC, he made William the acting president partly. When William went to Germany and Belgium, he did not make Gachagua an acting president. So William was still president.
And he was making decisions wherever he was.
He was still the one making decisions.
Thank God for that.
So when you see guys thinking that Gachagua is the bad one and William is the good one, you know, I know Azimio has used that in the past when they were called and then NASA. That is how they have actually been making an entry into government. But I don't think that this time they will actually succeed because these guys are playing to a very good script. Like you saw Gachagua there looking so good. The guys tried to even talk about the body language experts talking about, did you see how he looked like? Did you see how he looked like he wasn't happy and everything else? I don't think. The president's statement was vague. Raila's statement was specific and almost linear. The only concession the president made was one, and he used this language, I suggest. On the other side, the guys had lied, as in Raila's statement was specific, but the president's statement was vague. So the president allowed himself to be the president, he still became, he demonstrated goodwill and leadership and told Azimio to actually decide what to do. And I think for that was the rope to hang themselves, because I can tell you that evening, GOK had done heavy mobilization. Had you seen those FSRs and I don't know, those lorries that are lifted up?
Unless they walikuwa wameongeza rangi kidogo pia, ilikuwa imekuwa purple kidogo.
No, I'm just saying the police mobilization in Nairobi was heavy that particular evening ahead of Monday. So the president was simply demonstrating leadership and showing goodwill and then allowing them. Because also, by the way, Azimio really needed an exit from this particular quagmire. It's easy to excite people to go to the streets. How do you call back and you do not lose your face? So the president helped at least Raila to save his face.
To get an exit. So he got an exit out of it.
Everybody else actually won out of it. So the president allowed all of you to blame Gachagua. Then he comes in and looks like he's the leader. But of course, Gachagua was just doing his work.
Lucia, I would want to just to stretch our imaginations, because I see you swinged in exactly on whether or not the president was still president while he was away. In your own wild imaginations, when you start to stretch your imagination, what do you think happened? What do you think related to was behind the scenes before you could see what you saw also both on State House and Capitol Hill? What do you think happened?
You know, our president is on social media, right?
Yes.
And you know a lot happens on social media. Tunakuanga na maoni hiyo mtaa. So I want to believe our president sees everything that goes on social media. Miss Dani Mali Hussein anakuanga tu amekaa na mwambi, by the way, president, unajua leo huku kuna trend. I don't think he does that. So he's very aware. I would say if I was a president, I would want to think that the people around me will give me enough information to make me aware, including the verbal diarrhea that our DP occasionally has, which is very disturbing, by the way. And he might be right, very right. There always has to be a bad person. Nakumbuka in high school, our principal was the best. It was the deputy principal that was the demon. Yes. And you know, like, forgive me, deputy principal, there was nothing wrong with you. It's just that someone has to be the bad guy in every situation. And in a lot of situations, it has to be the deputy. As we've said, the king cannot be ashamed. Someone made a joke once upon a time and said, maybe Indians speak the way they speak because someone was trying to not shame a king somewhere. You know, there used to be a king who had a lisp. So every time he spoke, we were all required to speak with a lisp so that the king would not be embarrassed. So it's one of those things. Did our president make a wise decision while he was going to Germany to not leave his presidential powers to the deputy? I think it was a very wise decision. But I also do not see a situation where it was foreseen that he would not be coming back, or there was something that would be hindering his coming back in terms of him being a president. So there was no need to take that precaution. But to be honest, I think even if that was a precaution that needed to be taken, Mr. William Ruto is wise enough not to.
Okay. Ayiela, if you stretch your imaginations kidogo hivi, unaona nini iliendelea?
Definitely, maybe they could have been via conversations. Yeah, they could have been. I mean, politically, that is how things work. Every elective area, there always some background. You know, hata huko nyumbani, if you are very strong MCAs and you want to kill each other, you'll realize hata wazee from your area wanakutananga, you know, they kutanana huko
mahali
wanasema hapana vile mnaenda sio kuzuri. Lazima kukuange na some people who are reaching out. You know, one thing that the reason why I agree with Maliba, but again I question him, is
of course you never
his attitude with
really
the police.
agree.
You know, Maliba, they still want the Nyayo police, you know, the Nyayo which was beating Ndigi Mwana Nzeki na bakora kwa
reminded me of that. He seems to support that brutality.
I'm shocked.
And you made a very wrong statement.
Don't finish.
The president has to reconstitute the police service to serve his interest.
It has the president.
The police are supposed to serve we the people.
Yes. How?
But what I think what Maliba is bringing out is that the police have a responsibility to restrain.
Very true, and I agree. And also what I want to tell him is, go tell your president to take better care of his police people so that they don't betray him the way they betrayed him last time. But don't go telling us he needs to reconstitute the police to serve his interest. That's a very wrong and retrogressive line of thinking. And I am sorry, it's just not it. We're in 2023. The entire world is making noise about policemen practicing their whatever it is that they're practicing outside of the rule of law. It's not just a Kenyan problem. We saw it in Nigeria. We saw it with the Black Lives Matters. And you want to sit here and go like the president has to do this to serve his interests. So the power of the people in this constitution does not matter at all. No, I'm not shouting. I'm naturally loud. I'm sorry. I'm sorry if it makes you uncomfortable.
What's your clarification?
But I will not diminish my voice to make you comfortable.
This is the point. This is the point. I said this repeatedly. William Ruto is here to administer state. Among the tools provided to him is the National Police Service, for example. And I'll actually say this repeatedly, that the police frustrated the management of the demonstrations. Like, this is it. Why, for example, would you be shooting a trailer if you do not want to mismanage? Are you trained in police, in crowd control? You are not, right? So when the police mismanage that particular aspect, when you bring in officers who are drunk, she forgot all that. And it's okay when we're having a debate, it's easy for people to become expedient. When you have got drunk officers, a police officer drunk falling down and recorded on, that is a man armed. You have sent that particular individual to a demonstration. An inebriated human being will shoot somebody on the other side and immediately people die. You know what happens, right? When the police are running away from people, you know this is how impunity starts. Anarchy starts this way. The police, you know, the whole essence why we arm the police is simply to have the balance of fire on the side of the authority for purposes of bringing in normalcy, right? So immediately that balance of fire is not on the side of the people who have got legitimate authority as the police. The police are running away. First of all, it starts like a joke. The police run away. And then we clap, right? The next time, the criminal element in us, and by the way, there are never many, is just 1%. That 1% will exploit that particular window. And then there will be anarchy. It's easy to actually, you know, until you've actually served in a place of responsibility, when you make decisions on who lives and who dies. Because unfortunately, when people are in government, sometimes those are the decisions they have to make. You know, we will pretend here that the people in government do not make those decisions. But every law that is passed in parliament, for example, sometimes it spells life or death to somebody. Sometimes there's somebody killing people. How do we go about that? So, this is the point that I said, and there is no lie in it. The police, the National Police Service, specifically the formation commanders, largely mismanaged the demonstrations. It was his point.
You know, Gerald, there's a lot of things that have changed over time. We are already past the Nyayo era, where police would be very high-handed, where they want to. I think
the point that Maliba was bringing is
I got his point.
Is that these are people who serve the interests of other people.
No, I got his interest. Of course, we can't verify that because we can't verify. Remember when everything was hot. When Ruto was in Germany, and the people, the powers that be in the global power arrangement attacked him. Why? He is allowing his own government officers to attack people, even custodians of their resources, like the former president's properties. What did he say? He said, no, Mimi, I don't have influence in police. You remember he said it? Akasema, the police make their independent decisions through the Inspector General of Police. In fact, I even gave them money. You know? That is what he did. Yes. But on the real operations, we remember the deputy president sanctioned the police in his office. All those formations that Maliba is talking about. There's a big problem with our Inspector General of Police. Is he Inspector General of Police? Yes, the guy is too emotional for a gun holding. He should not. If there's anybody there who can reach Kome, please take that gun away from that guy. It's too emotional. Kama kuna mtu ako karibu na Koome, save him. Take that gun away from that guy. The guy loves war. I think he watches a lot of either video games or a lot of movies. I feel Inspector General is watching a lot of Nigerian and Chinese movies. Cobra Squad. Behaving like Mutua. Even Mutua is doing very well. That was shocked at one time, I think 3 weeks ago. Minister of Foreign Affairs issuing statement about local issues and giving, I wondered, this is a bluff. Diplomacy does not operate like that. That's a very high, it's a high game. You don't put comedians like Mutua in serious foreign affairs. Those in serious countries they even put military officers. Before you lose out on that, let me just remind you that Oyola knows too well, and he's just said it a while ago, that in government nothing just happens. Of course, that statement was aimed at something we will discuss later on, and it looks as stupid as that statement. Everybody out there, including people who've not done IR, this statement did not look like it's diplomatic. Of course, but it had the ends it was meeting. And by the way, at the end of the day, you will realize that it contributed into where we are today. Maliba, those foreign nationals have a lot of intelligence about us more than even ourselves. If you look at the European Union, they use their church infrastructure, including the Anglican, including the Catholic. Those are all intelligence agencies. There is no heaven there. Let's be honest. Of the West, the reason why even Chinese cannot make headways in global politics is because they don't even have language, not even their culture. Nobody practices it. They don't even have a religion. So they're still many years, hundreds of years below us here. But there's one thing that we have to agree on. The police, I will still insist, we are living past all that time. Now, the police are living at a very critical time when there is police reforms, there is IPOA here. So if kama kuna kitu polisi anaogopa Kenya hii, kumpeleka maneno za IPOA. Those police fear that thing because they are always under reporting and cases and investigation. The police do not want to see that thing. So most of them, even though they would want to behave like Moi time, but times have changed, they know they will be, at the end of the day, watatafutwa wenyewe. You look at those officers who have been arraigned about Baby Pendo and all these demonstrations of late extrajudicial killings. With the time it has kuchenjiwa, yes, they were demonstrating, but you could have arrested them. So they are wanaanza kusema the police did extrajudicial killing. When the moment that extrajudicial killing term begin to be floated around, the police is on his own. Na ndio maana police usikizo they are restrained. They would want to act, but again they fear. Now, even if they act under when they are hiding, social media is all over the place. Citizens will unmask them up to their village, the way they unmasked that other guy, that dark guy from Soi, up to his village. Waseme hadi masista zake. Dada yake ni nani? And then you realize, of course, it might not be really true, but psychologically, you fear that if they see me Bitok, itakuwa ni nini hadi. So you spread your risks even to the innocent people down there.
But let me ask you, Oyola, let me ask you, David. Now, even I'll just speak about that because I also have a problem. There's a time I had a breakdown. I had a puncture on Langata Road, just near the KDF camp on Langata. It's called Langata Barracks. So I had a puncture there. It was around 8 p.m. So I stopped on the stage. Just a few minutes after I was just waiting when I was trying to call the mechanic to come. A police lorry comes. So he comes and anakuja anapark mbele. Then he came back and told me, umesimama mahali mbaya sana. And by this place, people are usually robbed. Make a mistake, you stop here, you're robbed either by gunpoint or knife point or whatever it is. There are a lot of crooks that are operating along that route. Even the time, I think the road people were waiting for matatu. Hapo wakakimbia wakaingia ndani ya jeshi. So and he was like, there's a lot of crime that is being very prevalent here, and there's nothing much we can do because when you even try to defend yourself, because these guys can kill you. They're saying there's someone who can actually shoot and kill you, but you cannot do anything. It's better ujikalie kama police ukae kambi, whatever happens, let them brain and all that. Because when you make a mistake of trying to actually safeguard the public from these crooks, IPOA will come for your neck and you'll be fried. Now, we've seen situations where police wanakimbizwa mpaka police anapanda sengenge, anapanda fence, anakimbia. And it's a police officer who is armed. Being chased by a mob, mpaka anapanda ubaya anaenda. In Pipeline, the other day, last week on Thursday, there are police officers who were pushed even into the estate Police wanatoroka wanaingia kwa estate ndani. And these are people who are armed. But they cannot take action against them because these are criminals as well. Those are crooks. So while protecting, when talking about extrajudicial killings, where do you draw the line between? Because these are human beings. The police are human beings. And they're supposed to bring public order and also protect the public. You can imagine if you are under attack from a mob and you have a police officer who's supposed to protect you from the mob. And then he cannot protect you because if he tries to shoot these crooks or these criminals, then he'll go to IPOA. So where you'll be lynched by that group. And where do you draw the line between also law and a lot of sensations around activism and all that? And I also want Lucia to pick that because it can happen. You can be in danger. You can be found in that crossfire. The police are trying to protect you. But then again, even you with your activism, you're saying, no, don't do extrajudicial killing. But these crooks want to kill you. Where do you draw the line?
We are conflating issues here. And every time we talk about the police, people really want to be emotional for nothing. Specifically, and I would want to say this because I a little bit understand that sector. And I would say this. When I say that the police really mismanaged these particular demonstrations, the management of these demonstrations is that they are the people who are trained in kinetics. They are trained in what we call the kinetics being musketry and stuff. They are the people who are trained in crowd management, right? Let's talk about Isli. Why?
Hey, Isli.
Let's know why were they giving the media the shots that the media really wanted? When we talk about the shots that the media really wanted, is that when I was talking to a few people, immediately you start to, and then you wait until he starts to speak. And now you project the water. What are you doing? Now tensions go high. That is mismanagement. Where there are no two ways of looking at it. Raila left Intercon here. There were police all the way from wherever he wanted. If they wanted to stop him, why would they wait until he meet crowds? Did you see the kind of fighting that was at just after number 10 at the Madare Chiefs camp as you enter into the Madare North Road up next to the Redeemed Gospel Church? Did you see the kind of fighting that was there between? Look at this. On that Madare North Road, the police accessed that road from the KSMS side. They came in and blocked Raila from the bridge here between 4A and the chief's place. So in between here are people. On this side are the police. On this other side is the police. In between here is Raila. And then you know what Madare is. For those of us who grew up there. It is at that particular point you are now directing water. And now people, the people from that place where we grew up, we were born and grew up, know how to demonstrate power and defiance. So many people were so surprised that the people in Madare would stand up and fight a whole day without caring. Until women come out and tell, we don't want to fight, because young people are not getting tired. They just do it in shifts. It looks like it's a game. That level of mismanagement, because were they acting a script? There were all places where they would have stopped Raila and taken him to Karen. Why allow until people have gathered? Why then, as in, you wait until people have gathered, enough people, and then, are we making a script? Are we shooting a movie? They were, as in, so that you go up then there's this other bit of officers, when it's about directing water, but it's out there, even in their own reports, they know. Unaambiwa mwagilia maji ya watu juu, unanyunyizia watu maji. So 10 people, 30 people, unamwagilia juu hivi unaenda. People talk about Moi's time as if we've just forgotten Uhuru's time here. Bodies being found in rivers and stuff. People being captured on roads. Now we no longer want to talk that because his brother is now on the other side and probably we could be supporting that. So mismanagement of the demos is not the same as police brutality.
Okay. All right, Lucia.
This is what I want to say. First and foremost, I do not disagree with you when you say that the police mismanaged the
demos.
Yeah. I am disagreeing with some of the sentiments that you are putting in between the sensible things that you're talking about. That is what is worrying me, and that is what I'm disagreeing with. And like you've said, the president is tasked with managing the state. So when he's reconstituting the police, he needs to do that in the interest of the state. It's we, the people who have given him that power. We've relegated our power to him so that he can manage it, because all of us cannot manage it by ourselves. So that has to be it. But this is the point I want to make. Even as we are talking about police brutality, police mismanagement, or lack of it, or whatever it is, and I just want us to talk about the origin of the police system that we currently have. Where did we get it? Okay. We inherited it from our colonizers. What was the purpose of the colonizers coming up with a policing system? It was to protect their substantial business interests and the land that they had stolen from the natives. Whom were they protecting themselves against? They were protecting themselves against the natives. So we take you, Gerald, we go train you to be a policeman so that you can go brutalize your villagers when they refuse to go work on the railway line. You are literally being taught how to hate another person of your own. And that is the police training system that we still currently have. Correct me if it has been changed.
It has.
It has?
Yes, and I'll actually demonstrate.
Good, I'm waiting for that. But I don't believe it has. Our policemen, and I have police people in my family, a lot of police people in my family. This is one document they do not use in training. Also correct me if I'm wrong. And I'm actually waiting to hear from the Inspector General himself on this one. Demonstrate where the constitution is used while police are being trained in Kiganjo, in Embakasi, in wherever that the training goes on. I do not believe that, because when you approach a police person in this country and you tell him, I know my right, whatever you're saying is besides my right, those people feel insulted. They feel insulted. If these rights are what you're supposed to be operating within, why are you mad that I know them? Why are you feeling challenged because I've asked you to act within the constitution? Now, having said that, I'm not saying policemen are the big bad devil. Sio hao walishuka ni Lucifer wakakuja venye tumeambiwa hapa. They are not. There are other things that we need to look at. And my problem is when we talk about police service, defense forces, when we talk about our security services, we look at it we look at one aspect of it. So we want to talk about police brutality, and we want to talk about mothers of victims and how our young people are being killed, but we don't want to talk about the well-being of our police officers. We don't want to care about how they live, and some of their living conditions are very deplorable, Gerald. We don't want to talk about how badly they are paid, and these are people with families and responsibilities. Just the same way that you are a father and you don't want to go back home and feel that you can't provide for your children, it's the same way that police officer is also a father. It's the same way that police officer is also a human being. They have feelings, they have emotions. Fine, they're trained and they are armed, but at the end of the day, Gerald, they are human beings. And I'm looking forward to a day when we start talking about police, we look at it holistically. Are our policemen well paid? Are they living? Do they have the basic need? Do they have a house? Do they have clothes on them? Have you seen some of the uniforms that they put on? Mtu amevaa uniform for decades, imechapa, they cannot afford a new one because they're not paid well enough to. And there's this statement that a lot of people in corporate usually say, I'm not paid enough to do that. So at some point, if our cops start saying, I'm not paid enough to do that, where are we going to run to? So this has to be a very holistic conversation. We don't have to look at one side of it only. It has to be a very holistic and objective conversation whereby the citizens have to know that they also have a duty and a responsibility. And to be honest, at times we just aggravate our cops. At times, not all the times. At times we aggravate our cops. And as much as me aggravating you is not a criminal offense, as a human being, it's gonna get a reaction out of you. And if you are a cop, I'm just imagining I'm a cop who is not being paid well, and I'm working under very tricky conditions, and there's a mob coming after me, Gerald, and I have anxiety. I'm shooting that gun. I'm definitely shooting that gun.
Let's not forget about anxiety. I don't want to bring you a situation like this. You are a peaceful citizen. Let's assume this morning you are coming to the studio. And you are light at El Selassie or Afia Center, and you're walking. Forget about the uniform, how the police are paid, the conditions they live in. It's just a police officer, you as a citizen.
Yeah.
And just from the other end on Muthurwa, there's a mob coming for you. Coming towards your end. And there's this cop who is armed. What would you expect him to do?
Now that I'm not panicking, I expect him to run with me, honestly. I'm not expecting him to sacrifice his life. If a mob is coming for me, I'm not expecting him to sacrifice his life. Na expect anishike mkono na niambie madam tuende.
Mawe zinakuja wako na mbio kualiko. Utaambia ngojeni kwanza tusome constitution, the mob.
No, that's not what you do. And you see, in that case, that's why the law says if the security of an officer is threatened, then they have the right to use force.
Okay.
Gerald, it's only in Kenya, by the way.
This is the point I was making when I was talking about what he said. If we are going to have a police force or service or whatever name we want to give it that is going to work for all of us, we need to disband and overhaul the entire thing. These small cosmetic procedures here, there, IPOA, police service, sijui light blue uniform, they're not working. We need to overhaul the whole thing, because every time we do that, we are treating a symptom. We are not treating the disease.
Shouldn't we also use the same energy to overhaul our people, our public? Because our public is also criminal.
I wish we could. Yeah. I wish, and Jenna, I agree with you. Have you seen the way we behave on the roads? Have you seen the way we behave on the roads? Yani mtu hawezi kwa tu patient for 3 minutes, green light, turn, lazima overlap. We are a people with bad behavior.
And I think that's how we need to begin, if you ask me. Oyola, then Arnold will take us to the reform in the police.
In fact, I'm shocked of late. I've been looking at how the police are controlling the demonstrations and crowd management. I don't know whether you have a recent photo of a police officer na ile nini yao ya kutumia kuzuia
the shield.
You realize that it is missing in our police.
Lakini bana uliona ile fare ya Kisumu.
Ndio hata kitu inaweza zuia. Ile kitu imetengenezwa, I think it can even need bullet. That's the thing. If you look at demonstration, we are not an isolated country. If you go to France right now, anybody who is having a data right now can Google France right now. There's even terrible and dangerous demonstrations in France. They're even banning police vehicles more than what we have locally here. Terrible. In fact, I was so shocked that Wazungu can behave like that.
But they are original goons.
Because always when they love war.
Those guys are real goons. Did you see supporters of Trump and we were all shook at is that America?
Up to the seats of power in US until people got shocked. And that thing really derailed American morality. They can't lecture people anymore. But the police are trained to control crowd. They have all the instruments at their disposal. They have the tear gas. They have maji ile ya pilipili. Wako na hiyo shield ya kuwazuia. They have hizo vitu wanavaa ya kuwazuia and all the headgears. Police have everything at their disposal. If they want to control a crowd, they will control a crowd. But again, the reason why I still have a problem with the emotional decisions by Inspector General of Police, and I will still insist anybody who is next to Inspector General of Police, please take firearm from that guy to protect him from himself. He's too emotional. He can kill himself. There was a time during student politics when Babu Owino was still vying, and as some of us were campaigners, there used to be very intelligent propaganda around that area. Then somebody made a very serious joke that one day Maliba will burn his own house, thinking that Babu Owino is inside. It is some phobia that you wonder where it comes from. So I don't know what Koome is afraid of. I think he wants to prove a point that he can be a capable, the president made a good decision, he's a best inspector general, hands-on, but he's emotional. That is the problem we have. Where in the law do you derive the orders where you're saying you're banning demonstrations? Where do you get that order? It is not in the law. Where do you get that kind of, that article, umeisomea wapi? And you see the moment if Maliba wanted to demonstrate plus these people from Dagoretti, and they've given you a notice 3 days, which is allowed in law, and they've told you we will demonstrate on this particular day, And you just say, okay, you want to demonstrate, we will give you security. And then tu mfanye maneno yetu mfanya nini? Mwende. Because the moment you begin disrupting their process, they begin revolting. That is what was happening in these demonstrations. Watu wamejitokeza wanataka kwenda ku-express their rights, just like a police is also expressing his legal right of protecting himself and also quelling the tensions. A citizen is also supposed to be allowed to express his right, and you should not hinder it. The moment umeanza kutoa manenos like, you begin calling them criminals, we will not allow you, we have banned demonstration, you are in the converse inciting these particular people. Okay. But I wanted in Maliba we'll talk about that part of police. There's a part that he also said, I think he raised very good key points. He also talked about the media, that the media was taking side. Let me ask you, Gerald, in a democracy that we are in right now, where the executive has bought as a supermajority, it's controlling the House of Parliament, which in law is the opposition, because we don't have something called opposition. Raila is not a opposition leader. He's actually what Raila is doing is CSR. There is nowhere in the law he is required to do what he's doing. These things that Baba is doing, they are supposed to be done by Parliament. But Parliament already, executive imeshaenda hadi kanunua kila mtu on its side. Judiciary imeshaenda hadi your side on that side. Those are the checks and balances against the executive. Already the executive has already taken them to that side. Baba is already not allowed by law to do what he's doing. He's just doing a CSR out of what he loved doing. Baba is naturally an activist. He's doing that, but he's not allowed by law.
Okay. Allowed. He's allowed.
No, he's allowed, just like Maliba is allowed, but he's not allowed in law.
It's not officially.
It's not officially. There's nothing called opposition in our constitution. This hangover of the Moi constitution must end. It is not there. Baba is not an opposition leader. Opposition in the law in the 2010 constitution.
By design, it
is the parliament. It is the parliament. Na sasa inafika level lenye executive ishachukua watu wote. Where do you want the media to do? The media is now doing what they are now supposed to be done. The opposition. Yeah. Opposition.
David, can I ask you a question just as you proceed?
Yes.
Is the opposition supposed to hate on government or to oversight? Is the word oversight the same as hating on? And is opposition supposed to be hostile too? Why I'm asking that is that I can tell you, probably you've not taken time and checked out the media space. The media space has actually been hostile. I want you to get that word. Hostile to this administration. To the level of hating. Hostile. That is not oversight.
When you begin putting the words like hate, liking, loving, those are very subjective personal opinions. But they cannot be very verified. Depends on who is saying it. For example, if I say my sister loves me, it is my own personal opinion. She will also say, no, Dave, of course you're looking handsome, but I don't love you.
My big brother.
I'm not trying to throw shots.
You're becoming very clever.
Please don't threaten Gerald.
You are shooting without shooting.
Without shooting.
Because those liking things, those are personal opinion. The only thing we have to make sure that, and it is very sad that Gerald and Maliba will bear me witness, and my sister, that the civil society is dead in Kenya.
Thank you.
The civil society is dead, literally dead.
Dead as a dodo.
Imagine since election ended, apart from them saying that election was right and that is how it was.
They disappeared.
Hatujawahi sikia sauti ya civil society. The proactive civil society that we used to have kitambo, that were very keen on certain things that the government is doing. And I told you last time when I was here, and you actually the one who said it, Gerald, that there is no popular government. A government will always do something that majority will always complain about. And the civil society, the media, are supposed to be the voices of the people. And these people, civil society is dead. Tumebaki tu na media peke yake na Raila. Now what do you want people to do? Alafu unapata watu kama Kimani Ichung'wah. People were drunk with power. I saw the other time Mandago justifying how it was right for that journalist to be hit by canister, and the way he was almost being broken, his bones zinakuwa broken.
But also the right question should be asked. What are media people doing?
Gerald, yeah, just wait for a minute.
Can I it's been rotating between these two.
It rotated between you two also for a while.
Let's give another.
There's something he said that when you disrupt a demonstration, then the people will revolt. And I get that revolt part. But when you're revolting, does it mean you have to be destructive?
Okay. A very important question that no one wants to answer.
Anal Maliba picks up from
I just want to go very fast and respond on issues. I'll say, number one, we love blaming colonialism. It's true, colonialism restructured the way we live today. Mm-hmm. But what we do not want to see is that colonialists also came with good things.
Okay.
Can I tell you that the sense of justice as we know it today was not present in the way we lived, the way our ancestors lived? Mm-hmm. Because if Oyola here would disagree with the care or the elders from Siaya.
The care elders?
Yes, I think so. What they will do is that they will excommunicate him.
Okay.
In the days of old, justice as we know it today is not how it existed then. So for us, I think continuously blaming colonialism when we've been around here for about 60 years is also starting to come off as lame. As a society, we must also learn how to put on our pants. Keeping on talking about my father used to be fat and therefore pants no longer fit the way they used to fit my father. You, as in however tall your grandfather was, you must do your own growing. We have gotten to a place where we are choosing our own leaders, we are doing our own work, and things have changed. So it's good to talk about the effect of colonialism on our society, yes. But blaming our current situation on them sometimes is also a bridge too far. We are stretching it too far. The same thing goes to when she spoke about the police, how we inherited them. I mentioned the historic end of it because I know that the king's soldiers or the police were more brutal than the current police. Of course, probably during colonialism, it was now at industrial level, but this is it. The police curriculum has changed drastically. The police training has changed. We have got more better facing, or rather civilian facing police service than we have ever had in history. This police that we love to demonize a lot of them, and you should remember that when I said that the police, I insisted that the formation management specifically mismanaged this thing. Like, for example, why would somebody be smashing a car after people have gone? Are you dismantling the rioters, or you are dismantling the car? You are chasing people, right? From assembly, right? Sasa hapo unaanza kugonga, as in you become a vandalizer. That is vandalism. If those people were getting orders, honestly, because the police service is not like the rest of us. So the police reforms have actually been ongoing. Today, our police are actually better armed. I can dare say the police are better armed than the military. Okay. No one wants to say that, of course. It's not a conversation we want to have. But the police are better armed, at least for the role they play. It might not be the same equipment, but they are better armed. They are better served. Our police officers are being paid much better than they've been paid in the history. It's not enough. None of us is paid enough. None of us. Otherwise, all of us wouldn't be doing side hustles. None of us is paid better. But the police, we should also appreciate where we've come from. The police now are actually earning almost at the same level as teachers. Our teachers are still complaining. The police are still complaining. But even as we move, we must also accept that, this money is not fetched somewhere where, as in, we have got money somewhere and no one is paying it. Even if today, and it's easy for people to point at the police, the politicians, even if you took all that money, you will not be able to take care of about 140,000 police officers with that money efficiently. There will still be problems. So the training is robust. There are challenges here and there, but we cannot say that the police service we have today is the same as the one in Moi days. This police service is not even the same as the one we had during Kibaki days. It's really changed. We've got a new constitution and everything else. Then there is this habit. Even a class 3 dropout wants to look down on a police officer. In this country, people have got this obsession with looking down on police officers. Oyola, you remember at main campus, the whole idea was to argue with the police across the fence at Central Police by asking them, CV yako iko wapi? Uliacha CV yako kiganjo. You know, that mentality that police are inferior. You know, some of the brilliant people we have are actually police officers. You will find average people here without any, well, you know, when people are young, you know, when you're in college sometimes, and you know, the University of Nairobi has got this madness of telling you that this is the grandmother of all universities. This is the university. All the others are, those are analogs. Those are, how could you have a university? How do you have a university on some
named
floor?
after dead people.
How do you have such? So, that mentality is not just with the university students. It's literally with everybody. Even some hunter somewhere who has never gone to school looks at a police officer and he wants to look down on a police officer. A person who has trained, he's gone to school, he has trained, and he can do his work so well. So, you know, people really want to wag the dog and not the tail. You know, the police are just the tail. This tail is being wagged by the dog. It is the society that makes the police officer be what they are. A lot of times we really want to pick out the bad side of the police. But, you know, 90% of the day the police do good work. They wake up in the morning, go serve us, ensure that the society is well taken care of, and we go home. That day we don't remember them and we can't tell them thank you.
While taking bribes at it.
You see, the bribe taker and the bribe giver are the same.
Criminals.
Oh, why are we talking about? It's just the same thing like when we chase when we chase hawkers in town. On the day Kanjo starts arresting the people who buy from hawkers, then we will have solved that problem. But then you want to... You see, but you're forgetting one thing, that for every seller there is a buyer. Yeah, so...
For every bribe there is a giver.
So for every bribe there is a giver. So when you do critical factor analysis here, you must also accept that it cannot be. I know we will talk about the balance of power, being that the police has got power, he has got uniform, he has got legitimacy, but I can tell you, you also have got power over the money in your pocket. Our courts are so fair. And by the way, you can go to a police station with an issue, talk to that OCS, and he will let you go home.
But then, Maliba, as you were talking, just a little interjection. While you were talking, I was getting the clear diagnosis of where the problem is in the police force.
Yeah.
The current in constables, watu wenye wanatumwa kutuangana na watu. The reason why they are restraining themselves, Gerald, there's a generational change.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, there are a bit younger people with very many friends who know them, and they know them, and they understand how those people live there. Then, the seniors who are giving this younger generation of police officers are Nyayo recruits. Majority of them are still overtaken by the Nyayo psychology. So unapata kama a very rough order inatoka huko, Maliba naitoa huko because nilisikia yeye ako Nyayo. Anatoa order huko.
You keep saying ako Nyayo, but I think it's because it's from the Wanga Kingdom. You know, monarchies.
Yeah, monarchies. You know, Maliba anatoa very rough order huko juu because yeye alikuwa recruit wa Nyayo. Lakini anapatia majamaa different world. This guys are living a different world.
Let me tell you the truth.
Sasa hiyo conflict of generational conflict in police service. Nadhani pia inaleta
that could be a point. But in a rush, Oyola, when we were talking about police reforms, there was this rush of bringing in quote-unquote direct entry cadets. So we brought in people who went to university. The only thing they have got is a degree. And you know that a lot of times people can go through university and university does not go through them. So you then have got these groups that people who could not get jobs outside here. And the only thing they could actually then left with was to go to the force as supervisor, as inspectors, coming in as direct cadets, right? Some of these people, you people are looking down on. These, the constables. Those are the people who do the legwork of the police service. Those are the people who make the service. Now you bring in people who are looking down on them because the only difference is that you went to the university, you could not secure a job anywhere, and so then now you are rescue. In fact,
you got a relative who
you never even dreamt of being a police officer. It's only that ulishindwa job huko nje. You became a lawyer at some point. You went did law, and then huko nje ukapata the vocation is flooded. You can't go to court, you can't do conveyancing. So with that degree, unaenda hapo chini intimidate some officers who have served with distinction. So somehow, in a rush to try and reform the police service, we've also demoralized the police officers down here. Because, by the way, you do good work. And do you know who takes glory? is that formation officer who didn't even like care. He's the one who gets your who gets up there. So I think on the police, it's important.
On that point of inferiority, there is also this narrative that's out there. Every time they're doing police recruits, ni nini unaambiwanga ni qualification, miguu flat na meno 32. You know, like, it's just, you know, and there's so much more to that recruiting process other than kukua na meno 32. But, and here is where you have a valid point when it comes to media. When media reports it, what do they say they were asking for?
Now you get around to what actually I was trying to say. Of course, you know, some of these subjects are difficult to deal with it in one sitting. So, on the police bit of it, there's been robust training, there's been change in laws. And by the way, when you go to Kiganjo or Mbakasi or even Magadi, the rule of law, these police officers, by the way, know. And by the way, people go out here, you get somebody down there, like I've said, even a hunter demonstrating in the streets, it tells the police, I know my rights. You think the police doesn't know the rights.
So why do they get mad because we say
because you people
sometimes they are violating also the rights.
No, but sometimes they're trying to take advantage of you because they think you don't know. And when you show them you know, then they get mad. Because you were trying to play game on me and I stopped you.
You know, there's this power play between people in the streets and the police. Everybody wants to show the other one that I've got power, which is okay. Like I've told you, the police on the other side have got the gun, they've got the uniform, and they've got the crown. And you are here, you know you are right.
The Constitution.
You have got the Constitution on the other side.
Yeah, of course.
So those power plays, honestly, a police officer
the arm of the Lord.
you see, a police officer who's properly trained, by the way, will not be intimidated by anyone saying, you know the law. They will tell you, we'll just take you to court and the law will defend you.
And the law will defend you.
Yeah, so
Lakini ukishaambia tu karao hivyo kibare unaenda kuokotwa timu.
I don't know. I'm so sorry. I don't know the kind of police officers you meet. But you see, I have got police officers you can, the ones you meet, you engage them and deal with them.
Siku moja jaribu kuambia polisi, you know you are right.
Thank you.
I have had...
Don't comment from the point of this.
No, let me remind Oyola. Oyola knows me as a younger version. Oyola knows that I'm probably the only person who organized. You know, when I speak here, people think we've not done these things. Oyola knows that I'm the only human being so far who has done a demonstration to the gates of State House. It's written out there. I am the only person who has done a demonstration that brought down gates. You know, this Milimani gates up. You go in history and check. I brought 500 young people here to Kangoa gates za Milimani hapo chini. Mpaka the principal judge Mbogoli Musaga came out. We are the only people whose case yetu ishafanywa in open court. Na principal judge si mtu mwingine hapo Milimani. By the way, so when I talk about these issues, I'm not talking about like I have done serious demos. You go unaenda hapa Kencom. Ask out there, by the way, and it's on record. You just need to search. The security around Kencom, unaonanga hizo barriers zote. I put 500 young people inside the third floor of Kencom hapo kwingine. It's out there. As in, my people will say that the leopard is now old. Condos inaweza ruka hapa chini. When we were much younger, this town, he knows. He knows, but there were days when Oyola would come to a place when I'm speaking. Hizi siku nimezeeka watu wanarusha maneno unapata tu mtu anatoka na Oyola would even sit down on Oyola and update what I am seated in an event where Maliba is talking. I have gotten old and you see people
Maliba is taking unnecessary credit.
Hangovers of past.
I'm royal. Anyway, so let's talk about this. They spoke about CSOs being being dead. Do you know why we feel that way? Because we also have got a hangover from olden days.
It's now commercial.
Because the days have changed. The civil society we knew then was fighting for the second liberation. Multipartism, elements of democracy as we know it. Now we have got the Constitution 2010. She can say, I know my rights, and the police can get angry and do whatever they want, but they will do nothing about it. In the days of old, saying that you know your rights, there was just a way, as in, there was the law, and then there was the rest of you. So all that has gone. What we really are now, you know, the goalposts have changed. The goals, the objectives have changed. Look at this. At the moment, the most important thing, and that's why politicians are, people like Oyola here are wondering why the type of Sonko are winning elections. The Sonkolettes around the country. Because now the most important thing as a nation, where we are as a society, is Article 43, socio-economic empowerment. People want to know how they will take their children to school. They want money in their pocket. By the way, if you address, I've run for elections. I've lost some, I've won some, and I'll tell you one thing. The only policy the ground hears, and I'm talking about the people here, the people down here, is money. So after you have said everything, say you speak well, you sound well, you know what you are saying. Lakini kwanza fanya hivi antias.
There was a time in Siaya, there's a guy who was vying for an MP. You know, those people said, no, Gerald, no, we know what you stand for. We know your manifesto. We're already in a line. Answer na mama, alafu malize na sisi.
So today, you cannot win an election simply by saying, I am going to fight for you in Nairobi. I am going to fight for the same thing. Civil society is struggling to reposition itself with the new society that we have. Because now they don't know, they only know how to do things fighting against a Daniel Moi. Now we don't have a Daniel Moi. Moi is gone. Finally,
state infiltrated civil society and killed it.
Also, civil society is very resistant to the young, powerful, strong people that are coming in with new ideas and want to revolutionize the way we've been doing things. Right now, these people in civil society will fight me because I say young people don't have a whole day to waste sitting in a hall so that you can write nice reports to donors and say we have built the capacity. Do that shit on Zoom. Do they want to do it on Zoom? No, because there's allowances and per diems that they will lose when they do it on Zoom. It's about money, Gerald. It's a career. It's a lifestyle maintenance.
In fact, on this one, Maliba should keep quiet because as we are in CSO, we will tell him.
I'll tell you. No, I just I needed to say this. Everybody's talking about the church is dead. The church then was fighting for the second liberation. Why can't the rest of you fight for the third and final liberation? She's talking about the civil society not allowing the younger generation and everything. What is the civil society? The civil society is the rest of us. I just want to tell her this way. Do not agonize, organize. Because I'll tell you.
You're going to destabilize.
No, they will not. When I came on the field, I love to use my own example. When I came on the field,
he's gaslighting us, by the way.
It's not gaslighting, just the fact.
No,
we cannot always blame other people.
Your opinion is not the fact.
Can I finish? At least the example I have lived is factual. You are giving an opinion. And in journalism we say this. That opinion is free, facts are sacred. This is the point.
Why are you disregarding the example I have lived and you have not lived it?
For civil society, we should not blame existing organizations that have got their own goals. They have done their own proposal writing and raised grants and do things the way they are doing. Civil society is the people organizing themselves, right? We can therefore not say, when I came in, for example, I found the youth sector already organized with a leadership of its own. Every sector has got its cartels.
You've had your time.
Ngoja unataka kuninyang'anya hii point. Na Mungu anakuona.
Asante, Gerald.
So, let me finish this way by saying this. When you come in, do not struggle bringing a seat on other people's tables. Just create a more exciting table. They will come there. Do not agonize. Please go and organize.
Thank you, Gerald.
These are the people who will tell you, go create employment and then come borrow your votes. This one right here.
Your boss.
The truth of the matter is that civil society in Kenya is dead. You cannot tell us that those people are fighting Moi, so these days they don't have a job. All demonstrations in the world right now.
Poverty is the enemy.
Demonstrations in the world right now, from France to US to where they are being organized by civil society, because people have demands that the government is not acting on. There must be some proactive citizens who are able to challenge the government and also push pressure on government to make it act. And it's not only civil society. Even trade unions are dead. Professional bodies are dead. LSK is still standing on one leg.
Even now it needs.
It's almost it's limping. LSK is dead, and you see these are important components of our democracy that are supposed to be there to be the voices of the larger majority who are minority in resource allocation. So we have a civil society that's already dead. They cannot push anything, and it is very sad that today it is commercial. A civil society, Maliba would start one that is championing on for against gender-based violence or FGM. And instead of taking that movement and the resources that are given by donors, at your village where FGM zinafanyika, they take a conference in Mombasa. They take you to discuss FGM. To discuss FGM. of people in Narok, of people in Narok. And you look at that kind of operation of our civil society. Squeezy, the reason why we're only, not that they are dead, wakina Maliba bado wanaitwa as facilitators.
Yeah.
In hotels.
In Mombasa.
Kempiski, Sui, Wapi, Mombasa. And you look at the kind of operation and you say, okay, our civil society right now has been commercialized. But that one aside, there's a part that, of course, that one we'll talk off air. I saw a lot of opportunity in that area when Maliba, and Gerald Bitok, this one we will revive because we started Italy around and you disappeared. Only to come up with this. But now, that one we will talk off air. But the last one, there's a part that we have to look at also all this thing of is it not handshake? But you see, this thing keep changing. During Moi it was Maja. During
the Grand Coalition,
it was
Serikali Nusumkate.
During Uhuru it is handshake. Now it is bipartisan conversations. Whichever way you call it,
partisan approach.
It is just one thing of different names. It's just like a lady, a lass. You know, and also by any name. Shore. Bado ni dem tu. So, babe. Bado ni dem tu. Kwa hivyo hii kitu ukiangalia, you look at imeenda. Imeenda. Hii kitu ukiangalia vizuri, there is we are still held captive by foreign powers. Of course, it is not our likeness. That is how the world works. Yeah, no. There's a video that circulated around last week about Bill Gates being grilled by some journalists, and he kept on answering.
That's deep fake.
But he kept answering. I'm not using the answer, and he was saying that is not how the world works. There is a way the world works, and if you try to challenge the power polarity or how things are, you find yourself on the wrong side. Majority of these colonies are still colonies in the background of our colonizers. These politicians we put in offices here, particularly at the top level of policy, that is cabinet and the president and the top judiciary all those people are just vibaraka or how do we call them? They're just representatives of our colonial masters, because in this country, if you look at almost all major resources, they are owned by those guys. Now, ukiona president pale, within a moment amebadilika hadi unashangaa na ni ule jamaa tulikuwa there's a way serikali runs, and there is nobody who is indispensable in that seat of presidency. If they don't want you, they will remove you within a twinkle of an eye. Even Ruto, no matter how strong personality you are, they have removed people before. They have removed people before. Those people don't care. No, Jacob Zuma found himself in a bad deal. Biashara ya minerals is a very complicated thing. They remove people. So hakuna mtu anaweza sema it is so strong enough that he can disregard those people. They will remove you. And some of the people who wield power in state, the so-called deep state thing, which exists everywhere. Hata village yenyu kuna deep state. Kuna watu, unaweza campaign, lakini wazee wa fulani wenye wanasikuanga na usemi kwa hivyo kutaka chini.
Nasema hakuna kitu.
Mapua ya Maliba vile tunaona akai mtoto wa nani. And your verdict is passed.
Just like that.
Unabidi unaanza kuongea English mingi sana.
Inaisha. So Gerald, mimi, the international community are still wielding so much power, and there are families that are very critical and very important to them, especially in Africa. Family like the Kenyatas and the Mandelas. Those are families that you don't just touch the way we saw those jokes, those people.
Well, that is fear-mongering.
No, I'm just telling you the reality.
That's fear-mongering.
It is true. Those are the people, those are the custodians of...
Yaya Jame kwani who are the Kenyatas?
Yaya Jame, who is Yaya Jame?
They say Nani is at son of the deep state.
You see, by the time, the reason why...
Who was Yaya Jame?
Even as a prince
myself, the reason why...
I do not take monarchies.
Wait.
You do not associate with that.
I do not associate with that statement.
No, Gerald, the reason why we have to look at those people are different from Yaya James and all the Nyereres, you know. At the time when these colonies were handing over power, we don't know what was handed and what was given. And it is those families that were actually given. And that is why, for those who are active in public service, are still very important to them. The reason why wezi pata hata kama mambo imeenda mbaya sana, serikali cannot hurt the family of the Jaramogis, even though they have the capacity to hurt it, including their own business. Can it shock you that across the world, Raila Odinga is the only opposition leader who is a billionaire. Can't you ask yourself a question? Is it really normal? Could this person be also part of the state? Because all over the world, opposition leaders are always what for example, if you look at the other time in Tanzania, the guy who almost sustained 9 bullets in his body. Everywhere across the world, opposition leaders
no, it's just what he's not appreciating is that our democracy is more mature. Is actually more mature. That's one bit you can't
32 minutes past 9. Finally. Finally, there's this story that our good guy, Mr. Haji. You remember some of the conditions Raila raised the other day was that he wants anything that would have been done against Azimio, except of course resurrecting the dead because they are dead anyway. Dead as a dodo. But anything arrests which had been made, cases which had been propped up, must be dropped if we had to continue with bipartisan approach.
And they were dropped.
Yes, and the DPP comes out and says almost 200, close to 400 cases are being dropped. What do you feel about that, Lucia? And especially on the background of independent institutions. I think that's
a country of the rule of the law.
Well, they've said Lucia. Is your name Lucia? Aki people who are coming from monarchies.
The Wanga.
I don't know Wangas are Luos.
Lucia.
You know, there was this time that that American athlete went to Russia. And then was it Russia or where? She was arrested for being from the rainbow community. And then the Russians told the Americans, oh, we can give you your person back, but you can also give us our person back. Whom did they exchange?
Barter trade.
Yes, whom did they barter trade the LGBTQ person with? With a terrorist? Was it a bomber or something, you know? So, but that is what we call democracy, right? Yes, so it's what we call democracy. This is what I want to say. Na hii ni maoni yangu. It is not a fact. Before my brother here comes for me, this is my opinion. I feel like our DPP does not have a spine. Just, you don't have a spine, man. You need to grow one. I am surprised that you've been able to stand tall this long. Because if the wind is going to be blowing and you're just following whichever direction that wind is blowing, I'm worried for your generations, dude. Just pick a stand. Be a man and pick a stand. Or just be a human being and pick a stand.
But that is also a stand.
This flip-flopping thingy you're doing is just not making sense. And my question to you would be, fine, you were coerced, you were told it has been negotiated, it is ABCD. At what cost will that come to your children and your children's children and the 4th generation from you? Because a lot of us right now, I feel like we are doing things and we are not seeing the effect that those things will have beyond our noses.
Okay. Arnold.
We are the country of the rule of law. We say that a lot of
which
times.
Law is that?
The Constitution 2010 as the supreme law. That is derived from the sovereignty of the people and the public good that makes the state that is Kenya. From a governance perspective, I will say that the decision of the DPP to drop cases on political instruction abuses and annoys the law, entrenches anarchy. But I am also a practitioner of statecraft. And I know one thing, that statecraft is not written in the laws that we see.
So you're cancelling yourself again?
That's why I'm actually saying that this is a conversation you cannot do in black and white.
Okay.
That when it comes to statecraft, it's, we've had these conversations, and normally there's this notion that there are 3 people you cannot arrest in this country. You cannot arrest Raila Odinga. Okay, you can arrest Raila Odinga, but where will you keep him? And will you have a republic after you have arrested Raila Odinga? Then
you're also fear-mongering.
No. Those are questions that anyone. It's easy. Do you know why politicians, once they have been elected, they get into the office, and somehow you think that they have lost their voice? It's because they do not appreciate these realities in statecraft. Then you cannot arrest William Ruto. It's impossible to arrest William Ruto. You cannot arrest William Ruto and still have the Republic, at least for now. Then you can't arrest Uhuru Kenyatta. You can say he doesn't have supporters and everything else. At least those three individuals, even if you are to arrest them, you might not have where to keep them, and you will not have a Republic after that. That's why I actually was saying this. The delicate balance of statecraft, talking about the law, the constitution, and the real running of government.
What are you talking about an office, Arnold? We're talking about an office.
I know. I'm telling you. I'm telling you.
And you see, it's the way you're talking about the rule of law.
Can I finish it? Okay. The problem with these arguments is that people think that this is geometrical. As in, you cannot do governance in a geometric
I'm not even talking about
approach.
I'm talking about
Let me tell you. So that's what I'm telling you. For me, I have got a problem with how the DPP has done it, because there are legal and procedural ways of actually ensuring that is done, so that it doesn't appear that he's at the beck and call of politicians, right? Two, I know for the rest of us, it will be like now, everybody else who has been arrested, for example. The call, for example, now, even as you blame DPP, can we now talk about the father of democracy in this country, who is Raila Odinga? He knows that people looted people's shops, people lost their livelihoods, and then he gives a demand that reads thus: that all our people and supporters who have been arrested during this particular mass action should be released, and all those cases dropped. Here is a man who prides himself in being the father of democracy, the champion of democracy, the very constitution that we have. So even as you look at DPP Haji, you should also look at the other side, that Raila is on the other side, is an institution. So here, this is pure politics. I was talking about the rule of law, legalism, and then statecraft, as it were. Then now coming in, now we have to talk about a term called politics. Now here is politics as the formula upon which people use to drive statecraft or whatever, or even administer state. So the politics of the day find it expedient to do this. But then are we going to reach out? Like, this is a very hard question, and it's a cold one. Lucia and David, let me ask you this. When Baba asks people, asks the DPP to release all those who are arrested, it is good and it pleases his supporters, right? Is Baba able to call back the three people who are dead and say, now you can be...
That's what I'm saying now.
Are you able to come back? So the oxymoron that comes with our politics, and that is the lesson our people need to learn, that for all those who have died, for example, Baba was able to go to Kenyatta's farm. Baba did not visit Kibra the following day to check on the mosque that was burned. He never visited Kibra for the churches that were burned there and the people that were fought and got maimed in quote unquote an incident that followed his visit there. Of course, people will talk about context, and he's not the one who did that and everything else. These are lessons our people must learn. That politicians, have you seen anything about the dead or on the demands he made? So no one is going to compensate businesses that were looted and destroyed. None. No one is even talking about making bills for the people who were injured and are in hospital. There's quite a number of people. We have got a police officer who was stoned with that giant catapult, and he died. He died, right?
He died, yeah.
He died, yeah.
Yet, we are still saying that we are defending the constitution, and on the other side, we are breaking it in the name of politics. So, this is a difficult conversation. People will go round and round and round and round, but I can tell you one thing. Stand out here and tell people, Baba should not call for the releasing of these people, and see what his people will tell you. Then, let William Ruto open up his mouth and say, we must abide by the rule of law. And then Baba says, we will not come to the negotiation table.
Bipartisan.
So let us continue bleeding. So
David.
Statecraft is difficult. That is one thing that sometimes we, the people who do comment yet, do not appreciate. But it's difficult. It's not straightforward.
All right.
That's why Oyola will go to the University of Nairobi, do political science. come out and tell you he does not even want to run for office. He doesn't care about. Of course, he could serve in other places because he has sat down and looked at this thing and realized that way before you talk about statecraft, you have got the people. A very complicated phenomenon. Do you know that the biggest problem we have in this country is the people and not even the government? Right. So even as we talk about what the government has done, please ask what the people have done. 6 months ago, they elected these people now. You would not have advised them. The people are just like the supporters of Arsenal. Hawaambiwangi.
Wewe tuachane na Arsenali. Pin location juu ya meza, tuachane na Arsenali tafadhali. Tuachane na Arsenali kabisa.
Tunasema ya mwisho ama?
Wewe mambo ya DPP.
Oh, I thought ni ya mwisho. Of course the DPP has been giving very bad signals in the recent past since this government came into office. Mara and wanna drop charges of corrupt people, you know. Some of those people, we know them, you know, they're just criminals, we know. They're just thieves, local thieves, we know them. But DPP, you know, the moment you begin rubbing people, rubbing such kind of things on the faces of the citizenry, they lose confidence in the system. And then that is when you find that people like Maliba or Lucia would resort to waiting for you in the evening, then they chop you off. They shorten your meeting between you and your creator.
They quicken the appointment.
That appointment, they shorten it. Because they know very well that if they follow the conventional way, people will die looking for justice. Right now, it is difficult to get justice in the corridors of our justice. DCI centers across the country have become centers of brokerages and where people make money deals. People are now negotiating for deals with the criminals. Easy DCI offices across the country. Ukienda kama hauna pesa, your thing will not be investigated. No, they just sent us as a negotiation. You know, people, these DCI officers are now brokers too. They are now brokering. Bere Gerald amegonga mtu mali, pata Baliba ndio DCI. Apige bwana nini, unatoa ngapi. And the thing is done.
Alafu unajua unaambiwanga lazima mkubwa hapa.
Kuna mkubwa vile inaenda. And therefore the DPP to me, if you ask me, he lost my trust long time ago. I don't even see any miracle he will use to restore it back. I'm just waiting for his time. He goes. Maybe he will decide to be a politician like his brother. His family are politicians. So he's looking at everything in the lenses of politics. What is convenient at what time and to who and who is relevant in it. If you find that it's Maliba, he has no money, Maliba anafungwa. Akipata ni Gerald Bitok anavanga suti, akona kakitu, anapatia 20,000, gets measure. And therefore, to me, the DPP has really broken a lot of the codes of trust between him and the people, according to the way he function. But being as it is, I will want people to understand that politics is superior to laws. Okay. Politics is superior to the law. In fact, parliament is superior than that judiciary people talk about. Those are subservients of these people. Because now they want to make Sharia, they can even remove you. You know, then they see the difference and then they make it law that the judiciary interprets what these people made. So politics at the end of the day will cover. Hata kitu Ruto alikuwa anasema sijui, Dr. Ruto alikuwa anasema
Rais Ruto.
Yeah, you know where we come from. Where we come from, we acknowledge titles. What the Dr. Ruto was saying about let's follow the law, those are not languages in politics. Those are languages of poor people. It is actually the laws are made for poor people. You know, people like us, if tufinye kabisa. No rich person ukienda industrial area, you'll find that you'll struggle to get those people. When you're wamejia pale ni watu wa kuiba kuku wakina Maliba utameiba. You know, the laws are made for poor people. I will tell you, Gerald Bitok, the biggest mistake anybody can make in this country is to lack money, not to break law.
True.
Well, you break the law, look for money first.
I agree with you.
If you want to break the law,
don't be caught.
In fact, somebody said, and I quote it.
That is Caesar. Julius Caesar.
Yeah, Julius Caesar. If you are to break the law, you break the law to take power. Otherwise, in no situation,
don't do it.
Don't try.
Don't do it.
Yeah. The only time you are supposed to break law is when you are taking power.
And you know,
and then you have capacity to take power.
No, when you take power, it means you will then make law too.
And imagine Maliba, we lost the election in 2022 because we were not able to listen to Julius Caesar. But
that is the chief good.
Kwanza listened to it. They broke the law, they took the power. Now they are working backwards to justify, legitimacy.
Unfortunately,
they are manufacturing consent now.
Politics in practice, as it's done today, was defined by Julius Caesar.
Yes.
And these Sutsu and the other people you are reading are only enablers and people who are trying to define what Julius Caesar did.
So Julius Caesar is the father of politics.
Politics as we do it today.
He said he'd rather be number 2 in your village. But not number 2 like Gachagua.
No, it should be number 1 in your village and not number 1 and not number 2 in Rome.
Not number 2 in Rome. Yes.
I would rather be number 2 in my village, number 1 in my village, but not number 2 in Rome. So
It's difficult.
Thank you, lady and gentlemen.
No, we are not concluding. We want to conclude.
You want the tackle of the day?
Yes.
Before you tackle of the day.
we start from that end.
Okay. Start from that end again. But he just spoke. Maybe we'll go back to Lucia and we come back this way. But I'll just tell Aji, I think we are tired with these biology things of, capture, release, whatever it is, experiments.
Kamata,
biological experiments.
wachilia.
I mean, hizi vitu specimen collection tumechoka nayo. If you cannot prosecute, don't arrest.
Yes.
Just leave it. Stop sensationalizing.
And if you cannot prosecute, don't hold those people in jail. I mean, we are tired of these circuses. And I think it takes away the credibility of that office.
Yes, trust.
Away. I mean, just a point where you don't even bother what they are doing. Like, I think Ayiela has already given up. Said he doesn't see any magic that will make it to recover. Because for me, when Aji came in, he came in with a lot of trust and confidence. Public trust.
Yeah.
People are like, finally you have someone who actually can stand in for the public. Because it's a public office. It stands for the public. So, Mr. Aji, if you cannot do this thing, but achana tu nayo. Ama pia usituambie like we shikilia wachilia nini, don't inform us that you've arrested anybody.
Yes.
Ukishika Oyola, don't tell us umeshika Oyola, utamwachilia kesho.
Bas.
We shika tu pole pole, weka ndani siku mbili, negotiate na yeye, akisha kula taxes umutoe free lunch. So I think it takes away the credibility from the office of the DPP and also the government as general. So that's my stand, and I think public officers can do better. You guys can do better. Yeah. Others, because if we destroy the independence and the trust in public offices, especially those accounting officers, my friend, we don't have a country. Because these politicians, clearly, they can switch whatever they want. And the rail wakes up and says, I'm making demands, release everybody. And an institution that is protected by the Constitution, that you say at the OSG, it was supreme of the people. I think tunaongeanga English mingi sana pia. Kama watu waelewi Kiingereza tunaongeanga. But anyway, that's it. Lucia, your tackle of the day.
I had not even planned to talk about this, but we talked about CSOs, and I've just been looking at my beautiful katiba from Uraia Trust. And upper left, bottom left corner, bottom left. Nimesema vizuri.
Bottom up.
Bottom up on the left.
Bottom left corner imeandikwa Uraia, Kenya's National Civic Education Program. This program was stopped in 2019. I don't know why. I don't understand why. I think civic education is something that should never be stopped because we have younger people who are maturing into this age of wanting to understand their rights and responsibilities. So it's something that should be continued. But when it comes to CSO, here is something that Oyola did not mention. When you go to donors and you go with a proposal and you say, now me and Gerald are doing this civic education thing on digital platforms, the donors then tell you that is not our priority area. But if you can go talk about ABCD, these are our priority areas. Those are their priority areas in their country. And we then never take time to negotiate with them and make them understand whatever it is I'm doing is what is the priority area in my country. If we do not have common ground, it's okay for you and me to not work together. You don't have to put me in a corner of your country's priority area so that you can give me funding to focus on things that are not a priority for my people. And can we start negotiating? Can we just stop accepting everything because it's donor funding when we are really not using it to solve any real problems kwa ground manze? We are losing our dignity in that. We are prostituting our poverty and our pain and our challenges for what? A few pennies?
All right. right.
Excuse me.
I think a few words.
No, not that human organ.
Lucy, don't worry. You know, when why are they perverted?
You see, you've forgotten the hotel meetings. You could have emphasized on
No, you see, that's what comes in, because when I tell you that's not our priority area, go focus on this because this is our priority area. That's not a priority area in my community, you know. So I'll find ways to burn that money.
Ayiela.
And you see now that has become a lifestyle maintenance. If I solve the problems in Kibra, donor funding will not come in. I will not get trips to Mombasa by air. I will not sleep at Sarova White Sands. I will not get per diems of 8K a day. So we end up not solving problems, because once we solve the problem, it will take away the lifestyle that we are accustomed to.
Okay.
Do you know nowadays you cannot even get young people to assemble anywhere, and yet you want to tell them something that will be of importance to them. Why? Because NGOs created a culture where I give you money for showing up so that I can help you make your future better. Make that make sense.
All right, David Oyola, your tackle of the day.
Hey, why Maliba is looking at me? He's a government mouthpiece. So.
No. That's why you love to finish on behalf of the government.
Family spokesperson.
My tackle of the day is to do a little bit of civic education to our people. I've seen all around some other people are condemning conversations where leaders can compromise their hard stances bipartisan and come and talk on the table of brotherhood. I would like to tell them that, and majority of these people who are against things like negotiations, majority of them are people who are not yet married. For people who have lived with women and men in their houses, they will understand that a conversation must always be in the house all the time. Otherwise, that family will crumble within the next moment. People must, family is the smallest unit of administration. And when you see people who have no wives or husbands are talking about administration.
No negotiation.
Yeah, no negotiation. There's no handshake. And you have no handshake. You can't even sustain a relationship. You feel sorry. You feel sorry.
Now my brother finally have an ambassador.
Shots fired.
And so I would really want to make our people understand that there are two things that we keep confusing our country with. Number one is the word democracy. Number two is the word republicanism. We have a country called the Republic of Kenya. And our republicanism is expressed through democratic exercises where people are given opportunity to do election. Democracy says that majority have their way. Democracy. Majority have their way.
Minority have their say.
No, minority have their say was just added to define republicanism, but the pure democracy ni ile majority wakisha sema ni hivi, you abide by what they have said. Whether you people like it or not, whether it is working for you or not working for you, that is none of their business. The decision had already been made by supermajority. That is democracy. Republicanism says majority have their way, but minority have their say. In fact, republicanism inasema, even though majority can overrule a decision, but there must be some
assuaging,
some protection.
Massaging.
Yeah, you must protect the minority. That is the kind of country we have. We are not a pure democracy. We are a republican state. And if you look at our emblem, is it coat of arms and all the government emblems, Kenya is well written there, the Republic of Kenya. And that is why sometimes when people say that we have won election, you keep quiet. You say this is ignorance in practice. Sometimes I thank God that I see ignorance in the lifetime that I live, because there's a lot of problems most of us have. And therefore, I'd like to tell our people that we're living in a republican state. And republicanism is protected by constant conversations where people talk and compromise their situations. Because your contribution into the kitty of the national treasury and mine, we are all contributing to the taxes. The government administration is being financed by all of us. And that means that all of us are equal before the law. We should not make politicians make us have so deep differences to a point where we look at you, where we can help each other at this level. Until we can, I see nothing good in you. A republican state of the country and the Republic of Kenya inasema lazima tukae chini once in a while tuongee juu ya maneno inahusu nchi yetu. And therefore me I support the bipartisan approach that was brought.
Ambassador.
Because at least maybe through this bipartisanism we'll stop the kleptomaniac appointments that has been going on, where we are seeing everybody occupying critical state offices are people who are less qualified to be there. Some of those people who are serving in those offices, Gerald, I doubt whether Lucia can take them to to look at after their shops. You know, ukiangalia wale majamaa, the current government wamekuwa wakiweka pale. Let me ask you, Lucia, can you put Gachagua to, for example, a deputy Gachagua, to watch over your shop when you are going for a journey in Germany for 1 year?
I wouldn't even put the president himself.
And many people will not even, Maleba will not even put Baba there, you know. And so,
even me, I cannot even put you.
There was a lot of kleptomaniac appointments in the recent past, where we are seeing that our country is being administrated by less competent people. Then a total disregard of the law. We saw that the public service said that we should have around 23 CASs. Is it 23 or 22?
23.
The president came with 15 numbers. It does not really help us.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Arnold.
My tackle of the day, number one, to the people of Kenya, it's important to learn continuously. You are on your own. In most cases, politicians will talk. And when Kenya ban, you have nowhere to go. To Raila Odinga, congratulations for actually winning your 2027 nomination. Kalonzo, I am sorry. You actually will have to be a running mate again, or do a 207 kind of run. It will not be helpful.
2022 is still a year.
But finally, my tackle of the day is to the president. First of all, congratulations to him for actually manning up and being the leader, stepping down, swallowing his own words and accepting. Even if he stepped down on one thing, I know he insists that there are two things he did. First of all, he insisted on constitutionalism, that if we are going to have a national dialogue, we have got a village square that is called Parliament. All of us elected it just 6 months ago. If we do not believe in that particular village square that we created, then we go back to the villages. Secondly, this one, I know he knows much better. William Ruto won an election. He's won his elections all through, and I know he knows this. Sort your house. You were found wanting. Your government was found naked. They were unprepared. Sort your house. Your communication team is doing poorly. Dear President, sort that. Please quote the media. They are so hostile. Reach out to them. There is nothing you will actually gain on both sides. And the media will also not gain by continuously being hostile to William. Talk to each other. That is an important actually bit that we should not forget. The media is important. William needs them. And they also need William, by the way. At the end of the day, government is the leading advertiser. And when government stabilizes society, business flourishes, the media gets they will play their role. Finally, he needs to sort Harambee House.
Okay.
The security infrastructure in this country is still very azimioted. Harambee House was actually enabling the demonstration and exacerbating the situation. He needs a proper crackdown on the leadership. You cannot have people who endanger the lives of the people and
the life of the government.
And the life of the government. You know, you cannot have that kind of leadership. There must be a crackdown of information commanders, and that should be immediately. Otherwise, Raila has already seen the weakness in this particular administration. He will keep on. You know, Raila is like a kid. You know, wherever kids have seen something good, they keep on going there every single day. It is for William to actually harden the physical security installations he has. Otherwise, we will be here for a very, very long time.
Okay. Yeah. All right, thank you so much. Our good ambassador of bipartisan, David Oyola, is suggesting to us that finally that we are going to have a bipartisan process and probably a handshake. Then we are going to see better things. We're going to have better people in positions. He's forgetting that even mahali tu tumemaliza, mahali tumetoka juzi hata nyasi haijasimama. Mahali ya shingine nyasi hata haijasimama. Hata baba hata jamaliza chai kwa kikombe yenye alikuwa anakunywa huko. Yeah. So I don't think there's anything new that's going to come from the class, at least if the same class, unless there are other people. But the same class of politicians deciding to work together, there's none. Also on the issues of defining democracy, you define Democrats and Republicans. I think they also need to end the unchecked democracy. Unchecked. It's also a form of governance. Now, new political students and new political scientists maybe should add that. Unchecked administration as part of democracy. It's been a pleasure having you. But I will also remind you that kama wewe ni mkulima, if you're a farmer, please make sure that you can get your feeds from Fugo Feeds. Fugo Feeds by Unga Farm Care East Africa Limited gives you the best opportunity to get the best production from your animals. Kama unatengeneza, kama unachunga kuku, kisha kama unapata, if you're doing growers, ensure that you can get your chicken feeds from Fugo. Kama unafanya mayai, kisha kama unapata chicken Fugo layers from Fugo Feeds. If you're doing also nguruwes, wacha nguruwe anatangatanga akikula maajabu kwa barabara, mpe Fugo Pig. Kama unafanya samaki, Fugo Tilapia. Unaweza kupata mapato zaidi. Pale Fugo Feeds tunasema naitwa aje? Malezi bora, mapato zaidi. Malezi bora, mapato zaidi. Asante sana. It's been a pleasure having you. See you tomorrow on Siaza Wednesday. Babu Wino will be here just to tell us again what is happening in bipartisan. In Bonga. Looking forward to having you tomorrow. Until then, take care and bye-bye. We love you.